4 years ago, a poor woman in the Philippines had 4 children. At that time, her 4 kids were ages 2, 4, 7, and 9. And Corazon Endonela, who lived on the outskirts of Manila on the island of Luzon in the Philippines, was married, but her husband was very sick. He could not work, and he probably couldn't find a job. So on a good day, Corazon Endonela would find a way to get into downtown Manila. She would spread out her 4 kids to various strategic corners, and for 8 or 9 hours, all 5 of them would beg for money on the streets of Manila, or maybe somebody would give them food, or maybe something they could sell, and with that they would huddle at the end of the day, go home, and the money that they raised, they would eat their 1 meal of the day. Somehow surviving on that, I don't know how they did it. On a bad day, Corazon Endonela had to stay in her home to take care of her sick husband, and her kids on their own would go downtown and do the very same thing. Now Corazon has no assets, no collateral. She's never even had money in her life except for what she's received by begging on a daily basis. She's illiterate, she can't read, she can't sign a document for a loan, and she's actually timid about what it might mean to transact a credit project with us. But one of her neighbors, another woman, says to Corazon, look, if you go into that little primitive store over there, you might be able to improve your conditions. So Corazon Endonela gets the courage. She walks into this 2-person bank. It's a microcredit bank funded by Oiko Credit, and she conducts the largest financial transaction in her life. She seals it with stamping her thumbprint onto the document and borrows $35, a micro loan. With $35, because Corazon, like a lot of poor people, is hardworking and creative, she buys a sewing machine and some materials. She finds a way to power that sewing machine in her primitive home, and she starts making slippers and clothes. She's good at it. So now, instead of going into downtown Manila to ask people to give her handouts, where she has to beg, she spreads out not her kids, but a sheet, puts on that sheet the slippers and the clothes that she has made in the Makati district, the better-to-do district of Manila, and passers-by who see that she's made some good things and have some money, buy what she has made. She has income. She has a job. She's receiving the recognition of her work by doing something with a small loan for income-generating purposes. Now her family can eat 2 meals a day instead of 1. Her ill husband could go to the doctors once every 3 years instead of never. After a little while, she will have the savings and the resources to pay for her kids to go to public schools, clothes and books. She can improve the roof over her head and maybe even the dirt floor. She feels much better about herself. Her own self-esteem has been lifted immeasurably, and she's paying off her first loan. And as a result of doing that, Oiko Credit gives her a second loan. She borrows $100. She buys 3 sewing machines. She employs her 2 sisters and a woman friend. Now 4 women have jobs who didn't have before. 4 women have income that they will use for their families, and that is the redemptive power of microcredit. And the good news, because today there is about $30 billion in the microcredit pipeline that is making loans available to about 150 million women, primarily, around the world. Women are better stewards of the money, they use the resources for their families, and they're very reliable borrowers. And there are even some studies that indicate that women empowered with credit are less willing to tolerate domestic abuse in their homes. That is the good news. Unfortunately, there are 3.4 billion people on the planet right now, that's half of the world's population, who find a way to live on $2 or less each day. The demand for microcredit is enormous. And that is why commercial banks are entering the microcredit market, because they see the huge potential to make money off poor people. And that's why microcredit right now is in a very difficult and delicate situation, because there are forces and pools in the industry, those that are more mission focused, that is to reduce poverty, which is what Oiko Credit does and is committed to, and those who see the commercial advantages and want to make money off the backs of poor people and are willing to do that in ways that may not be so advantageous to poor people. And that is one reason why I ask you, if you are interested in supporting microcredit, be careful where you put your investment. We are able to make loans around the world because we have 36,000 investors globally. In our 35 years, from 1975 till today, every one of our investors whether an individual or an institution, has received annual interest for their investment, not a gift to us, but an investment in us, and have received all their money back upon redemption of their principal. Not one individual or church institution or foundation which has loaned us money has lost a dime, because poor people are very reliable in paying back their loans. However, our organization is one that's committed to alleviating poverty rather than profit maximization. We're one of the first organizations to sign the transparency protocol that makes interest rates known publicly, hoping that that competition will lower interest rates and will be able to tell which microcredit organizations are doing good things for poor people and which ones are extracting and exploiting poor people. Our social performance is outstanding. We have our own department that measures the impact of how loans improve nutrition and education and housing, and how the microfinance institutions which we support can be more consistent about their own mission to make sure that their loans go to poor people, because there are some banks and some microfinance institutions today which are making loans, calling it microcredit to poor people, but loaning to middle-class people for consumption purposes, charging higher interest rates and giving higher interest rates to the investors. I ask all of you to consider ways in which you can support microcredit by making your own small investment, as little as $20 at MicroPlace, or maybe through our definitive notes where the minimum is $250. We have investors, individuals who have as much as $400,000 invested in microcredit, institutions that have $3.8 million invested. Please remember this: if you only have $200 or $100 and you think that's too small, don't. Your $100 can make a big difference in the lives of people like Corazon and Donela. Your support by doing your own house parties after participating in this event tonight through the summer can inform a lot more people about the tragedy of poverty, but the brilliance of microcredit and our organization Oikocredit, whose mission it is to reduce poverty by receiving investments from people like you in the United States and in Europe to help people in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. I want to thank you for your attention, your interest, congratulate you for participating this evening.